Hi, it's my great pleasure and honor today to introduce you to a real writer's writer, someone who has a powerful pen and knows how to use it. Best-selling author Randy Susan Meyers saw her first book published at age 57, and she's nothing if not inspirational to all the would-be writers out there who think they're somehow over the hill for writing a first novel in their 50s. Her first two novels, The Murder's Daughters and The Comfort of Lies, have garnered very positive critical attention, and her new novel, Accidents of Marriage, has received much of the same, having been given a coveted starred review from Kirkus and having been picked as People magazine's book pick of the week for its September 15th issue. Bestselling author Robin Black probably said it best when she described Randy as a genius of the human heart, and Accidents of Marriage as a profound education on the complexities of love, imperfection, damage, and responsibility. Kirkus said the book is beautifully written, poignant, and thought-provoking, and that it refuses to succumb to the stereotypical reader expectations, making it even more memorable. Okay, first question is, can you tell us about your book, Accidents of Marriage, and the dynamic between the main characters?
Well, I can. It is about a marriage that looks perfectly wonderful from the outside to most people. We have a lawyer, Ben, married to a social worker, Maddie, and they have three children, ages 7, 9, and 14. But what's inside, behind the door, is a lot of anger. We have a man who has extraordinarily volatile moods, and nobody in the family knows which Ben is going to come in the door. And it gets tenser and tenser until, with an incident of road rage, the whole family gets broken. And the question is, will they be able to heal?
Okay. Accidents of Marriage is about the effects of emotional abuse and rage on a family. Are any of these characters based on people you knew?
I think it's based on almost everybody I know. I think at some point in our relationships, whether we're married or not, there's a moment when things go awry. There's a moment when somebody loses their temper. Maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody you know, maybe it happens at you, maybe you're the one who loses your temper. And how you move on, that's what's going to say how the rest of your life is going to be. I worked with Batterers for 10 years. And when I came in there, I probably would have said what a good person I was. I never hit my children, and I never did. I had been hit, and I vowed never to do that. But then I realized after working with these guys, I yelled at my children, and that certainly wasn't for my sake. I mean, excuse me, that wasn't for my kids' sake. That was for me to offload my own temper. So I think it's about everybody we know.
Okay. In your work over the years with batterers, what traits did you find that they all share in common? And were batterers that you worked with capable of change, and did most of them show remorse for what they did to their families?
Well, if I were going to pick one overwhelming trait that all the men I worked with had, it was that they felt like they were victims. And they always found a way to blame somebody else for anything that happened, even if it was totally obvious that they were the ones who had made whatever the problem was happen. And as to whether or not they can change, yes, unless I was dealing with men who were true sociopaths, they could change. The question was always whether they chose to change. We offered them the tools, but whether or not they used them, that was totally up to them.
When writing the book, did you know how it would end, or did the ending begin to reveal itself while you were writing?
People, last night I had my launch event. Somebody asked me if I was a pantser or a plotter. Pantsers are people who just start and just go. Plotters are people that put it all, into an outline first. I'm definitely an outliner. I have Excel spreadsheets. I'm very careful, but I only do about 3/4 of the book because the end reveals itself through the details that come out as I'm writing. So I don't know exactly how it's going to end until about 3/4 of the way through when I start thinking about that.
Mhm. Okay. Do you think movies and the media in general help facilitate angry human beings, predominantly males, and their obsession with controlling women?
I think there are so many things in the media that add to problems with violence against women. Um, Gamers, when you look at what the video games that they're doing now, I mean, I've never played a
Wow.
game in my life, but when I've taken a look at it, wow, it's truly shocking. You look at the people who are the anti-heroes, and I love these shows too, The Sopranos, Breaking Bad. I love those shows are gripping. But the heroes are these iconic bad boys. So yes, I do think that it's really tough for our husbands, for our boyfriends, not to have all have a little bit of the bad boy in them because it's so inculcated by society.
You write regularly for the Huffington Post. Do you have a topic that you like writing about, or are most comfortable writing about?
I love writing. There's like maybe three things that I really am comfortable that I write about a lot. One is I do write a lot about bad boys and behind the doors in people's marriages. I like to write about other books. I'm a tremendous reader, and I've made many friends just in the writing community by writing about their books. And my secret passion that I like to write about is clothes and makeup. In fact, one of the biggest reactions I ever got was when I wrote about Kate Middleton bringing pantyhose back as a fashionable statement. And boy, did women all over write to me about that. Of course, being a writer, I also wrote about what I wear at home when I'm writing, and that was pretty funny.
You said every man has a bad boy somewhere, and every woman has to deal with it, and sometimes it goes too far. Um, what are your thoughts about bad boy types, and why do women find them attractive? Some women.
I've thought about this a lot, and I think there's two main reasons that women go after bad boys. One is that they're working something out from their relationship with their father. I know that I had a bad boy habit for a long time, and I know a lot of it came from reenacting, sort of saving my father, saving men out there, the bad boys. I was the one who could change, and that's one reason. And boy, I've learned that doesn't work. And the other thing that really comes out a lot is that these are the guys that we see as the sexiest ones on TV, in the movies. And I recently rewatched Cool Hand Luke, and I remember finding Paul Newman so sexy in Cool Hand Luke. And my husband and I watched it recently. And I was like, whoa, yeah, he is sexy. There's no doubt about that. But he's also a drunkard, an anti-hero. He's a commitment phobe. I mean, he's not somebody that you want to spend your life with. So you fall in love with these guys on the screen, but in real life, Paul Newman, what did he do? He raised money for charity. He was good to his wife. I mean, so it's. I think that's a lot of the bad boy thing that they are put up to us as these great guys and so sexy. And I tell women when I'm talking to them, tell your daughters, tell yourself. Let's make the Atticus Finches of the world the sexy guys. You know,
Yeah,
Atticus Finch,
right.
Kill a Mockingbird.
Mhm,
If you're gonna
mhm.
marry somebody from the big screen, marry somebody like that.
Gregory Peck, right?
Great
Is
Beck,
your belief, yeah, is your belief that the one smack and he's out rule is a good one to teach daughters?
you bet.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna happen. If that happens at the beginning, get out while you can. I really do, but at this point, that's what I would say. I would. I understand why women stay, and I can work with women who stay and understand it, and I can talk about why they stay. But if you're at the beginning of a relationship and that happens, you walk away.
Good advice. Okay. What role does religion play in the novel? Do Maddie and Ben's different faiths exacerbate the challenges in their marriage? If so, how?
I think that one of the ways it exacerbates is that they're coming from different cultures. And it's not so much their religion, because neither of them were raised super religious, but it's the fact that one's coming from a more tense background and one's coming from a more open background. And some of that is cultural. The other thing is that because they're trying so hard not to steer the kids in either faith, when something awful happens and the kids are reaching out, they don't know where to reach. They haven't been given something in place of the religions. And that's something that I explore in my book. You know, what happens when there is nothing to reach for?
That's a good question. How do you recognize the signs of emotional abuse, and why does no one talk about it?
Well, I'll list as many as I can off the top of my head. Being criticized, having somebody say something like you're fat, and then saying, "Well, it's the truth, isn't it?" Having somebody point out your deficits all the time, screaming. If you feel nervous when he's coming home, look about why. Um, Calling you names, controlling all the money, telling you what to do and where to go, trying to cut you off from your friends in any way. Extreme jealousy. That's a real problem. If somebody's inappropriately jealous, that's usually a sign of some abusive behavior. If your partner is mean to your animals, that's a big sign of an abusive personality. And what was the second part of the question, Deb? The second part. Oh,
And
why
why
does
does
nobody?
no one, yeah, why don't they talk about emotional abuse?
Because they're embarrassed. Nobody likes to think of themselves as a victim, and nobody likes to paint their partner as a bad guy. And so we keep quiet about it. It's part of the dirty laundry that we don't air in front of the neighbors. Everybody just silences out on it.
Did you find emotional abuse just as harmful as physical abuse?
Yes, in there are different ways. One is much more dramatic and it shows, and of course it's very painful physically. The other is very painful also. It's just a different kind of pain. It really erodes at your self-esteem in a way until you get smaller and smaller and smaller, and soon you're living in just a corner of your relationship. Only one of you has the full walk of the marriage at that point. I don't think I can quantify which is worse or which is better. They're both wrong. They just bring out different sides of both partners.
Do you predominantly work with women who have been battered, or men as well,
Well,
when you
actually,
did work with them?
when I did work with them, I worked mostly with the men. They were court ordered, so they weren't volunteers coming. I wasn't their counselor. I was teaching a violence prevention curriculum. They were ordered there for a year. I did work with the women in as much as I called each of their partners at least 3 or 4 times throughout the program and then connected the women to services.
What are some activities you do to keep yourself grounded? Working with abuse victims must have taken a toll on your emotional well-being.
Working in domestic violence, I'll tell you, it got pretty toxic after 10 years. And I did have to learn to do things to soothe myself. Gardening is one of the biggest ones. I do love gardening. So in the summertime, especially April, May, and June, I'm out there digging in the garden. I can spend too many hours out there. Reading is a big one, going for walks. And when it gets really bad, there's nothing like a couple of Seinfeld episodes, I'll tell you.
Okay. Um, uh, do orders of protection really work?
I think that they're one piece of the pie. I do not think they work by themselves. I think I don't think, I know you need a coordinated community response. You need the courts working with Department of Social Services, working with batterer intervention programs, and also working with battered women shelters and battered women's programs. There needs to be everything laced together. No one thing works all by itself. And the most important thing to realize is that women can't keep themselves safe from being battered any more than robbery victims on the street can keep themselves from being robbed. It really needs to be an entire community effort. But I do think that they are a big piece of the puzzle. When I work with the men, not for all of them, but for many of them, what kept them acting right was they didn't want to go back to jail.
Okay. The book is categorized as women's contemporary fiction. Do you feel that your novels will appeal to men as well?
I know that my books appeal to men as well because I've gotten so many letters from them. So this is one of the reasons I'm so against slicing and dicing books and putting them in categories. I had a very funny incident with a guy who was in a class I was teaching on fiction writing, and he bought my book, and he wrote to me. He said, "I bought your book to give to my wife," you know. And then I was in the dentist's office. She was in an appointment. I was waiting for her, and I forgot my book. I had nothing to read, so I picked up your book. And it's wonderful. It's great. My God, I couldn't stop reading it. So I think from now on, I'm going to call my books dentist office books. But I have heard from many men who actually enjoy it, and I get a lot of letters from them. Well, emails. We don't get letters much anymore, do we?
No. Uh, which character in your story do you relate to most, and which character do you relate to the least? If you could pick.
Well, that's an interesting question because relate to is different than how I felt writing them. But in terms of which one came out the easiest, that was Maddie, women's point of view. But which one did I find the most intensely incredible to write? That was Ben. I really liked sinking into somebody totally different from me and writing that point of view. So those are really, I have to answer them from different points of view. And writing Emma, that's a big challenge. Writing a teenager's point of view, you have to really work hard to get the pitch as perfect as you can.
Mm-hmm. From what I've read about your new book, it's told in multiple points of view. Does Ben attempt to excuse or defend himself, and how can women see that for what it really is?
That is an excellent, excellent question. When I was writing from Ben's point of view, well, first of all, let me back up. Each of us are the stars of our own show. Each of us tell ourselves stories to get us through the day and to excuse everything we're doing. Ben does that, but he does it in such an open way that I think people can hate the sin, empathize with the sinner. And that's what I think. In no way am I writing Ben as having an excuse for him, but to show who he is, and then show him desperately trying to be forgiven and facing his own deeds.
Mm-hmm. Is there any sort of abuse in a family? If there is any sort of abuse in a family, can the abusive partner change, or should one simply leave? What help would you offer families caught in abusive situations?
I would say point blank that people can change, but they will not change because somebody's asking them to change. They will change because they want to change their behavior. Sometimes the only way that a man or a woman who's being abusive will change is when their partner leaves, when they face it. I have seen couples who stayed together and the man has gone through change, but they can't go to couples counseling. You can't have a man and a woman working together to control the man. It's on him. I would only say you could stay with someone if they're understanding that it's on them. When a man is saying, well, if you didn't do this, if you didn't do that, if you didn't do this, then I would be able to change. So I would say a man needs to go for help and the woman needs to go to support through a battered women's shelter. I don't mean she has to go to shelter, but she has to go get involved. It would be great to get involved in a group or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many, many, every town has a place to go.
You think every town offers this?
I think
pretty
every
much.
town you can drive. You may have to drive a bit, but you can at least find it online. You can find some place to call. You can start with the janedoe.org, and there's quite a few places. If you put domestic violence prevention, domestic violence help into your bar, your Google bar, or whatever you use for your search, you'll find something. It it's not comfortable. It's not fun. It's not easy. But there's no easy answer, and gosh, I wish there was. But staying and
Mhm.
trying to help him change won't work. Staying while he's committed to change, that may help.
Okay. What nationwide efforts would be necessary to stem the tide of increasing violence towards women in our society?
We have to start in the schools. We have to start really, really young. I'm doing a fundraiser in Newtonville Books, which is in Boston, right near me, for the Lauren Dunn Astley Memorial Foundation. She's a young girl who was killed by her boyfriend when she was trying to break up. Two regular kids in the suburbs, and she's trying to break up, and he stabs her. The father, who's just an amazing guy, is working to raise money to get programs in the schools to teach boys early on how to be in this world. You're watching football, you're playing games, you're seeing the violence. Where are you learning? Some of their actually simple tools of self-talk and other ways to learn control. That's where we need to start.
Okay. Okay. What made you choose to make Ben someone the readers could, at points, empathize with? Do you think people would question your action to do so?
I'm actually pretty sure that there'll be a reader to question almost anything that any writer does. And so what I think is this. I worked with guys for 10 years, and I very much learned as I said before, to hate the sin and not hate the sinner. Ben is not a monster. He does some monstrous things. I'm not trying to make somebody people empathize with. I'm trying to make somebody who's real in this world. Unless you go to the
Mhm.
real outskirts of the evilest, most terrible people or the kindest, most angelic people, we're all pretty nuanced. And I like to show people who are nuanced in my book as well. And Ben isn't bad all the time. And that's why Maddie's so confused, because there are times he's a great guy.
Mhm. Okay. Are you surprised how politicians are siding with the abuser instead of the abused?
Well, I don't know the specific event that the reader is talking about, but I'm never surprised when abusers get a pass. I've seen it happen too many times.
Um, your first book was published when you were 57. What led you to become an author and to write your first book later in life?
Well, actually, my first book was published when I was in my 20s. I co-authored a book called Couples with Children. And then I got divorced, and I was a single mother working two jobs and devoting whatever free time I had to the kids. So I always loved writing. I always wrote. I have a ton of practice books in the drawer. The fact is, it wasn't until I was 57 that the kids were done with college, that I had some time to really devote to writing in a serious way, to really apply myself, to really give myself what I call a homemade MFA. So it wasn't like a newfound love. It was finally being able to pay attention to it in a way that I could do a product that I felt proud of.
How can a mother or another parent make sure that sons don't become abusers?
Well, one of the most important things is to have a home where abuse isn't tolerated. Another is to talk about it very openly. Another is to teach your sons and your daughters tools to control yourself. And you can go where I used to work, Common Purpose. It's commonpurpose.org. You'll find things I put up there 10 years ago on ways to keep yourself acting out. You have to actively teach somebody to be good, just like you can actively, without meaning to, teach someone to be bad.
Mhm. How long was the writing process for Accidents of Marriage?
Well, I started this book quite a while ago, and then I put it aside because I knew I needed to really there was some things I wanted to address more deeply, and I let it cool down for a while, and then I came back to it. And so I'd say overall it was about a 5-year process.
Have you written any books that haven't been published, and do you plan on trying to get them published one day?
I have, and no. Those are my practice books. I think they should stay in the drawer for everybody's sake.
Okay. Do you have a takeaway for Accidents of Marriage?
That's a great question. I think my largest takeaway is this. I think we all need to think very deeply about why, and I'll include myself in this, why we treat people outside our families and homes with more respect on a regular basis than we do the people inside our homes.
It's very important. What is the effect on children in families where there is verbal and emotional abuse?
Children will imitate it. You'll see the children immediately in school who are living under that. They will become very hypersensitized. Even as infants in the crib, if they are exposed to screaming and yelling, they will have a greater amount of what's called the Morrow effect, the startle, where they go like that, and then in the crib, and that's from hearing screaming and yelling. Boys will generally become more abusive towards their partners. Girls will start finding more bad boys. Certainly, becoming promiscuous is a piece of it, and also drug and alcohol use.
Who are some of your favorite authors, or those who you get inspiration from?
Well, I love so many authors. It's hard for me to pick out some, but there are certain books that I return to again and again and reread. One is it's an old book. It's called Before and After by Rosellen Brown. I love Rosellen Brown, and she has a way of showing the family facets from everybody's point of view that I find incredible. There's a book called Mosquito Coast by Paul Theroux, and in that book you see a family system, a very broken family system, from a young teenage boy's point of view. And I think Mr. Thoreau captures that point of view about as brilliantly as I've ever seen it captured. Those are two that come immediately to mind. Also, she died young, Olivia Goldsmith. Not so much because she was like the best a writer in the world, but because she was one of the best I knew at having the gotta know. She wrote the first Wives Club, and the gotta know is something that Stephen King talks about. That which makes you turn the pages. And there's something about her writings. Every now and then I'll go back and read her books again and say, what's making me turn these pages?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Reviews say that this is your best.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking maybe I should have said more like, really old classics, but I just don't roll that way.
No. Okay. Reviews say that this is your best book yet. Do you feel pressured to make the next even better?
I always feel that pressure. I'm actually about halfway through my next book, and it's a big challenge, this book. So yes, I'm feeling a lot of pressure. I also do think that with writing, your craft improves. And this is why I'll never be able to do a book a year, because I need to cook things a bit. That's just the kind of writer I am. Other people can do it. I just need to cook things a bit.
Okay. Can you see Accidents of Marriage as a movie? And if so, do you have any actors in mind for the main characters? Have you thought about that?
I actually haven't. That's really funny. I actually pick out actors and actresses and famous people as a visual when I'm writing. And sometimes they're just characters that I see on a page, but I can't name one. They just are who they are. But as for would I like to see it as a movie? You bet.
Yeah.
But if anybody has an idea of who they think should play it, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. Has social media helped you connect with your readers?
Absolutely, absolutely. I get emails from readers every day, and I truly love it. And I cannot say that I can think of anything that really ever upset me. I've had people do confess things to me, and that's okay. You know, it's not like I become like their counselor, but I I adore hearing from readers. It's the best reviews I get. I mean, sure, there are some reviews you get out there that you're not very happy with from readers, but my best ones are also from readers, and it makes me very happy. And I have a lot of friends on Facebook, both my author page and my regular page and Twitter. So there are people who I feel like are my besties out there who I've never met. But at each place I go, I get to meet somebody new who I know on social media, and I love that.
No, listen, I know you wanted to do a shout out, but I also wanted to mention to everyone out there that signed books are available to readers in the Boston area at Brookline Booksmith, if you're from Boston. And also, please head over to BookTrib.com to enter to win a copy of Accidents of Marriage. And then, Randy, if you want to.
Deb, if you don't mind, I'd like to. I've had some incredible help from some special ones. Newtonville Books are going to be next week. I'm going to be doing an event there, and trust me, they will have my signed books also. Makers and Quinn in Minneapolis, I did a great event there, an early one. Brookline Booksmith, love them. RJ Julia in Madison, Connecticut, I'll be going there in a couple of weeks. Odyssey Bookshop, they are a treasure in Western Mass. Gibson's in Concord, New Hampshire, I'll be going there, I think, for my fourth time. I'll be going there with Robin Black, and I can't wait. West Wind's Bookshop, going to see them tomorrow night in Duxbury at the Duxbury Library. Acorn Books in Dover. Someday I'm going to get there. Dover, Delaware. Dover, Delaware. Buttonwood Books in Cohasset have done great events there. Letterpress Books in Portland, Maine. That's right in my neck of the woods. And please, and on my website, by the way, is an entire page devoted to them. You go to the indie section and you link directly there to buy my book through these indies. King's English Bookstore in Salt Lake City, Utah. Classic Bookshop in Palm Beach, Florida. And Books A Million helped me out a whole bunch. The Hickory Stick Bookshop in Washington Depot. That's in Connecticut. I'll be going there, I think in a few weeks. Nicola's Books in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I would love to go to Michigan. Brown Dog Books and Gifts in Heinsberg, Vermont, or is it Hinsburg? Either way, Vermont is a gorgeous state. Blue Willow Bookshop in Houston, Texas. Please invite me to Houston. I want to come there. And Books and Booze in Colchester, Connecticut. And I love them all. I love them all.
Thank you so much. This has been a great chat.
And I am an
Sure.
indie-bound pick. I am an indie-bound pick this month from independent bookstores across the nation, and that's just great.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and it's been a great chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Always a pleasure to be with you.